Right. Well, Bitcoin is a global tier one money. We've only had two in history: gold and U.S. Treasury bills. And whatever the U.S. does, it can only hurt the U.S. Right? Governments don't ban Bitcoin. Bitcoin bans governments. And if the U.S. wants to take itself out of the Bitcoin game, like Senator Cynthia Lummis was begging and saying, look, we don't want to be left out of the Bitcoin revolution. Please don't be foolish. There's not much anyone can do. I mean, some countries get it, like El Salvador. They're making Bitcoin legal tender. Their GDP is set to triple. Property prices are skyrocketing. There's a great feeling of enthusiasm in the country, and that's gonna follow all over Latin America. Nigeria is going hyper Bitcoinization. Their economy is set to do incredibly well based on a Bitcoin standard. So the U.S. Is in the first world, but if they continue this attitude, they're going to very quickly drop into the second world, if not the third world.
How much of this is due to a lack of education, you think, from the Senate? I was reading a CNN article, and they were talking about how the average age of the Senate is above 60 years old. It's a little bit different than the House. But they were also saying how investors over 50, the majority of investors over 50 in the U.S. have never even heard of cryptocurrencies. What can we do? What, not by we, not just you and me, but what can the cryptocurrency community do to educate people in Congress, in the Senate, and in charge of running the country?
The problem is not that we have a lack of education. The problem is that they're mostly crooks. And what I mean is they've been living off the fiat money hog for decades. This is the 50-year anniversary that the Nixon shock closing the gold window, and we went on a pure fiat money global standard. And the U.S. Senate is one of the chief beneficiaries. They just print a lot of money. They take it for themselves. They're entrenched oligopolists, and they're crooks. So if it takes Bitcoin to clean up the crooked Senate in America, then so be it. They should all be gotten rid of, in my opinion. I think the entire political establishment at this point has proven itself to be worthless.
I'm confused as to why cryptocurrencies were even brought up in the infrastructure bill. What does this have anything to do with the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill?
Well, none of these bills have any coherent sense to them. They're, 2,000 pages? We know that very few senators read these bills. You ask the question, well, will senators ever educate themselves about Bitcoin? How about should senators read the bills that they're signing into law? We know that they don't. We know that people slip things in at the last second to curry favor with their corporate overlords, principally the energy industry or the defense contracting business companies that own them. And they do this in a very crooked manner. It's not government buying for the people. It's a corpocracy buying for the oligarchs.
How's this for theory? Maybe we're not giving them enough credit. Maybe they're really smart. Maybe they're purposely making it more difficult to invest in cryptos in the U.S. so they can make way for their own Fed coin.
I don't give them much credit to think through things beyond that kind of immediate bag of cash that they'll take under the table. So I don't think they put much thought into it other than their own venal, corrupt practices. But as far as Fed coin, that's a different kind of topic, to get into. That would land on deaf ears. They don't know what that means either. And I don't think that there's a grand strategy behind it. I don't think that you can ascribe any intelligent thought processes whatsoever. These people in the Senate are like goldfish. You can feed them and feed them and feed them, and they're going to eat themselves to death. Right? They're not thinking. They're just jaws. They just eat. That's all they do. They're parasites. They're like tapeworms.
All right, well, so let's talk about central bank digital currencies then. Nice segue. It's already happening in other parts of the world. The Chinese central bank is making one. The ECB is considering one. The Bank of England wants to make a Britcoin. The Fed coin is not officially announced, but I'm pretty sure they're thinking about it. How do you see this playing out, and what does that leave? What does that mean for Bitcoin investors? Will people be washed out, or is this a better opportunity, you think?
Central bank digital currencies don't compete with Bitcoin. They're centralized. They're easily hacked. They're put forward by the same people who do the fiat money. It's just a digital version of fiat money. We already have digital money from the central banks already. They're just repeating themselves. It's just more of the same. It doesn't compete with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is decentralized. It's unconfiscatable. It's uncensorable. It's unhackable, if you will. So this is a vastly different situation. It shows that they're desperate and they're trying to catch up to Bitcoin. And the only way they know how to do it is to kind of do the same thing they've been doing for decades, print money and pretend like there's not inflation, pretend like there's not a wealth and income gap, pretend like they're not causing climate change. But from all the money printing that they're doing, they don't want to make that connection. And they own the media. That's why more independent sites and media sites like yourself and others are very important, because you're willing to go against the mainstream media talking points that are fed to them directly from these oligarchs.
You mentioned earlier that the governments can't ban Bitcoin. Well, how about this? Bitcoin may not be a direct competitor to CBDCs and vice versa, but the governments can make it more difficult for you to transact in Bitcoins, right? We've seen that happen in Turkey. Cryptocurrencies are banned as a form of payment. Governments can even ban miners, like in China. So they could put obstacles in the way of working with and transacting in Bitcoin. Do you see that happening?
It's all about game theory. So first of all, if two people want to transact in Bitcoin, any two spots on planet Earth, it's uncensorable. You can't stop it because it's behind an encrypted shield that's impenetrable. So it's never going to be stopped. That's number one. Number two, because as I said before, Bitcoin is the first global reserve currency money that we've seen since gold and treasury bills. And it's global, and we've seen that countries are adopting it, and in so doing, they are transforming their economies outside of the U.S. dollar hegemony, particularly in Latin America, where the dollar is used as a weapon. You know, one of the big mistakes America made was weaponizing the U.S. dollar by sanctioning Iran, by interfering in the SWIFT system, by sanctioning Julian Assange, the money to Julian Assange through the PayPal and the credit cards and all those financial intermediaries. They weaponize themselves. So countries are saying, you know what, we're just going to create our own. We're going to go to Bitcoin, and America can drop dead. We don't care. They're not giving us anything with nothing. They don't ship anything. They don't produce anything. It's all made in China. You know, America's the consumer of last resort. Well, we could get consumers in Africa. We don't need the American consumer. So forget them. Move on. I'd be short the U.S., in a big way. The U.S. Treasury bond is probably, I know Michael Burry is short the U.S. Treasury bonds. I know it's been a widowmaker for 20 years. Everyone who's tried to short the U.S. Treasury bond has been carried out on a stretcher. And it's it's a trade that has not worked for many years. But at some point it will work. And the U.S. Treasury bond will drop 50%.